No intro formatting today, just right to the point. I'm Tyler Sage, your host here at Fireside Chat on pwtorch.com's YouTube, by the one and the only, the editor-in-chief, the man with all the titles here at the Torch, Wade Keller. Wade, how are you?
I just realized I just typed in my name in the little thing and didn't include my title or my Twitter handle.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel
people,
like
I feel like
Wade Keller.
Yeah, I mean, I need that more so than you, I would say. But, so we're all in different spots here. But, yeah, so thank you for joining, and thank you for being here on YouTube with me. But let's get right into it. We are it's 4:08 Eastern time here on January 6th, 2023. And we've had a lot of news happen in the last 24 hours with Vince McMahon and WWE.
Yes,
so kind of, you've been doing what? You've done two VIP exclusive podcasts, I think, up to this point.
Yeah. Late last night, another one earlier this afternoon. I mean, yesterday it's imminent. He has the power to insert himself back into a position of power. And so I just was talking to people in WWE and people who know Vince and key people related to this, and just kind of conveyed what I knew and what I expected last night for about 25 minutes, and then did another 25 minutes or so today. I mean, it's a big deal. It can be a bigger deal if Vince McMahon tries to assert himself back into a position of creative power, if he tries to take some of the influence in day-to-day operations away from anything other than just wanting to be at the captain's wheel for the negotiation of a sale. And that's kind of what I've been talking about, is getting inside Vince McMahon's head and what he's really wanting from this. Is this, hey, I pitched 8 innings of this game. It's game 7. And I want to be here for the final season, or for the final few pitches to close this deal. It's just, closure for him, because he believes a sale is going to happen sometime soon, or at least serious negotiations will. And if that's what's going on, then, I mean, I'm not saying it's that I don't sympathize with the people who are against it. And it's not that I'm for it, and that it's not egotistical and all those things. But I understand from a human nature standpoint, Vince McMahon going, wait a second, 40 years of building this thing, and now I'm not going to be here to negotiate either the next big TV deal or more likely a sale. So I'm trying to get inside his head and figure out, what he has in mind, because this is bringing back into the forefront the allegations against him. The Associated Press headline, and I talked about this in the hotline for VIP members, the AP, I'm bringing it up on my screen here. Vince McMahon is back after misconduct investigation. I mean, that can't be what he wants, is to have all the allegations be brought back into the conversation, but that's what he's doing. And that's why, a few weeks ago when this came up in the Wall Street Journal, that people in WWE were upset. They're like, things are going well. Why would he disrupt this?
Yeah. And so, I mean, do you have any sort of standing on where that, if you are you in the ear? Are you in the brain of Vince McMahon? Where are you? What would you say? Because I think we all have our initial takes, right? And my base case with Vince McMahon in any capacity is like, he's doing this, and if it doesn't sell, like, hey, he's back to the pseudo CEO role, and he's going to take power. If it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, this is just a way for him to get in as an excuse. It's kind of my base case without talking to people like you have, right? So where are you? Are you more aligned on the team of, you think this is really him trying to finish the job and get the biggest, be the best promoter of all time by the sale and things like that, or something else?
It's not known, but your suspicions are not, you're not on an island unto yourself. Suspicious that he just wants back in, and the sale could be an excuse for him to say, I need to be there at the table to make this work. I haven't gotten indications from anybody that they think Vince McMahon is essential to negotiate a good deal for WWE. But the question is, does Vince McMahon think he's essential to get the best deal for WWE? Or is this a case of, I don't want someone else getting the credit for negotiating the sale of WWE. This needs to be something that's on my resume, that I led the way on, that I came back for this. So does he want the headsets back on and Gorilla? Does he want to be running Raw? Does he want to decide the finishes at WrestleMania this year, if not the lineup? I think he might. I talked to people who think who are definitely not ruling that out. That he wants everything back that he lost this summer, when he feels he shouldn't have resigned in retrospect. But I'm not I don't have enough sourcing on that, and I don't think the people I'm talking to who believe that are 100% sure. This may be a case if he wants to come in and just get that bucket of cash, and he wants to be the person to negotiate it, and that's what we have to figure out. The palace intrigue is how does Nick Khan feel about it, but especially Stephanie McMahon and Paul Levesque, and people who could say, oh, they're all on the same page, are not telling me that. It doesn't mean they're not. I mean, I want to hedge a little bit, but I have asked around and nobody is saying, oh, Stephanie and Paul Levesque, they're totally on board with this. This is best for the company. Nobody's saying that. And the common sense is things were going well without Vince. Why would he come in and screw everything up? And now to oust 3 board members and then have 2 others resign in light of this, there's a lot of power play going on. And this is, I mean, are we 5 minutes in? We have to say the word succession before we get 5 minutes in. I guess we're 6 minutes in. So this is very much like the HBO series Succession, and that family members and, you know, the head of the family and then everybody else is fighting for power. So one of the themes of my hotline for VIP members is I'm told this is not a story that you're going to know the developments in this story are not going to be close to finished in the next 2 to 5 days. This is a story that is going to have surprising public and massive twists and turns for 2 to 3 months. So settle in. This isn't you know, like Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House. We're probably going to know within hours or days. Like, it just has to settle itself. This is a situation that actually apparently, and I'm not privy to the details of what those are going to be, but there's going to be some twists and turns over the next couple of months as people vie for power. And again, the X factor is there a number one suitor for the company? Is it Comcast? Is it Amazon? Who, like, whatever. There's all these, you know, half a dozen or so companies that have been floated out there with different chances of being the company to buy or to negotiate a sale. But if somebody is in the lead offering big money and they want the deal, are they pro-Vince or anti-Vince? And how does that change things? Or don't they know, and are people now in their ear? Those are some of the things that can happen. And then are there other allegations that are cards that Vince critics can play and will play, or will at least behind the scenes threaten to play, that could change things?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, what to look out for. And I think that is the way to look at this is how you just laid it out, right? We're not going to know at 4:45 today when someone that was an employee at that meeting leaks the entire meeting to somebody. They're not going to be like, yeah, you know, whatever. But yeah, I mean, like you're saying with, I guess that's my next question. And I think you kind of answered it here, but, you know, Vince and Paul Levesque and Stephanie and Nick Khan are probably all going to vote yes because they don't have the votes anymore on the board, right, for things to happen. So things are already set in motion. And it's like anything, like you mentioned there with Congress, like you don't usually put a vote to the floor unless you have the votes in place, right? That's kind of what we're seeing here, is that this all work behind the scenes. So, you know, is there any inkling, and you don't, you know, if you don't have a good answer, you don't have to answer this, but like intermediately, and I'm saying, like, you know, let's say the 2 weeks after WrestleMania, right? Stephanie, Nick, Paul Levesque, are they tied into this as far as you know, or you just haven't gotten that far in talking with people?
Are they tied into
WWE?
Are they tied into what?
You know, is it gonna be like how Stephanie went away for family to spend time with her family, things like that, you know, not like I fired her, ha ha ha. That's not gonna be the press release by Vince, but it's gonna be the nice corporate talk. So
I mean, it's probably getting ahead of things a little bit. My guess is if Vince McMahon usurps power, retakes power, I don't think Stephanie is going to be in the position that she's in. I don't know. I know less about Nick Khan. I'm trying to figure that out. And I genuinely, I want to be forthright. I could be wrong on this, but I don't think Stephanie is going to work for her dad after getting this promotion, so to speak, getting this title, and then him coming back and threatening what was a good thing. And, you know, the question is loyalty to husband versus father, and the family dynamic. There's people I know who know the family dynamic who just won't talk about it. And I understand that, but there are people who could be more assertive in saying everybody's getting along and this is going to be just fine, and they're not saying it. And that's what makes me think that this will not be Vince McMahon at the helm and Stephanie happily working and Paul Levesque taking a demotion. That's the big X factor right now. Does Vince just want to be at the negotiating table, be part of the next deal, whatever happens, and then he gets out? Or is this the first step to him just trying to get completely getting completely back in control, and Stephanie and Paul Levesque, are gone. I mean, Stephanie already walked away once. She could do it again. Maybe Levesque wouldn't do that. There's a lot of money on the line either way. So we're early in the story. And there's a lot of things we're going to learn in the next month or two about this dynamic. I think the fact that the board is as shaken up as it is, I mean, we still have to figure out, the votes for Vince to regain power and where that stands. And it's kind of a crash course for us on corporate boards and how the politics and the legalities of all that work. Everything that Vince McMahon is saying, and WWE and press releases so far are saying, are for shareholders. And, stock was up 22%. I think last check, it was only up 16%. So there's been a bit of a drop. But that's not an endorsement of Vince McMahon. That stock price is up. It's certainly not a statement of no confidence in him, but it's just shareholders getting excited that there might be a sale. So, Vince McMahon wants back because he wants to negotiate a sale. That means a sale might happen. Okay, that increases the value. I don't think people should look at that as, yay, Vince McMahon is back. Now WWE can be taken to a new level. But everything that Vince McMahon does is to placate shareholders so there's not a revolt or lawsuits or anything that comes up where he has disrupted a good thing that was going to happen.
Yeah, no, and I think what you said earlier with the this is early, right? And then the long tails of this are, in my mind, the two warring factions here, if there are only two, maybe more, but going through and maybe having dirt on each other, et cetera. So, that's just my speculation there, but go ahead.
In the press release today on Vince coming back, in the fine print, it said, our controlling stockholder, Vincent K. McMahon, could exercise ultimate control over our affairs, and his interests may conflict with the holders of our Class A common stock. It's legal boilerplate. It was similar words, slightly different wording was in a September release, but that's always been there. Vince McMahon has ultimate power because he owns the majority of controlling interest in the company. So he's always had the ability to do this. The question is, would he do it? What would be the timing? How would he go about it? And would it be with the blessing and consent of other people in control or not? A collective generic statement by Stephanie McMahon, Paul Levesque, and Nick Khan didn't rock the boat, but it didn't sound like a celebration either. It was very matter of fact, and we can read into that what we wish.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the real number is 81% of that Class B stock that you actually have voting rights. The Class A you're talking about is what you and I can buy, and so yeah, this has always been on the table for him to make a power move on selling, not selling, or things like that. But I think the big thing I'm taking away from you, and I'll just read insight, but is the Occam's razor of the whole thing, right? Like Vince McMahon coming to negotiate a deal. Does that in a vacuum? Is that good? Is that going to help a company get more money?
And that's the thing. Does Netflix and Amazon, a Comcast, a Fox, a Disney, whoever, do they like the idea of Vince McMahon being at the table or not? Does that make them think the guy who built this company for 4 decades is still part of it? He knows the value. Are they nervous about it and they're willing to pay fair value? This might be Vince's perspective. If I'm sitting at that table staring them down, I'm going to get a better deal for the shareholders than if it's Paul Levesque or Stephanie or Nick Khan or somebody else, and because it's not the company they spent 40 years fighting off a federal government indictment and dealing with a bunch of crises, which of course Vince McMahon caused many of them himself, but he overcame them. Beating Ted Turner and AOL Time Warner. If he's that guy, the perception on the other side of the table is he's going to drive a hard bargain because he has 40 years wrapped up in this. If it's Nick Khan, they might think, we can work out a deal that's good for everybody, but it might not be the best deal for the shareholders, but it'll be something Nick Khan can present as a best deal. But that could be what is in Vince McMahon's mind, and there might be some truth to it, that he's going to drive a harder bargain for the shareholders than anybody else. Does he bring special knowledge of deal making? I think Wilson and Barrios are vital to this, because if you listen to the media calls that Vince McMahon has done in recent years, when Wilson and Barrios were around, he leaned on them. He didn't say a lot. It doesn't mean he doesn't talk to them privately and they all work things out, but they're and I've been told this is a few years ago, but that, Vince really, really got into the business side of things. Like he enjoyed the creative aspect of it, but he didn't fall asleep or get bored or, get distracted on his phone for the business deal making. He liked that aspect of it. And I think he craves being part of that. I think part of this is he just wants to be the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl, to just add another sports metaphor to this. He doesn't want to not be part of this culmination of 40 years of what's going on. And I think a lot of that is what we're seeing. And then the question is there enough leverage or power from the people who don't want him there to potentially screw it up, to dissuade him from, or perhaps get him to even back down? I mean, we could be 3 days away from a release saying Vince McMahon has once again stepped down, and it's a very pithy statement with no detail. And then I'll be left to our imagination, and there could be a threat made that says, here's some things that we know or that will come out. You need to step away and pretend this never happened. But that also might not happen, and Vince McMahon might be on headsets at WrestleMania. That's how wide open this story is right now. Mm-hmm. But it's always been a possibility, and it's why you saw a tribute to Vince McMahon on Smackdown by Stephanie, but there was nothing to read into that felt passive-aggressive negative, but nothing super celebratory and over the top. Let's do a 5-part series of a mini documentary on Smackdown about the Vince McMahon's contributions to the business, which would have happened if he, died and they were, and there was a changing of the guard. They would have done a lot more to celebrate his legacy. They didn't, because he was damaged goods. He resigned in the midst of scandals. But they also don't want to bury him. They don't want anything, because they knew he could come back, and this day might come, and everybody knew this day might come. And it's very Succession-like in that way. Nobody wants to have established that they're the enemy of Vince McMahon.
Well, yeah. And I think the booking pattern, Paul Levesque too, not to extend this too long, but it felt like definitely not as much change as I think most people thought would happen. And it's been, 6 months, and it feels very much like a 10% change one way or the other on lots of things. And yes. I think that's the same sort of story there, is that, you got to play both sides and make sure you're around if you do get hostily taken over and lose that battle, is what it seems like to me. But
well, yeah. And part of it too is if you're I'll use an NFL analogy. If you're a team that's on pace to win 10 games, if you're, let's say, 5-3, do you want to come in and change a few starters, with the risk being now you become a 5-7 team? Even if you think those changes will make you a 12-4 team, like you think you can eke out a couple more wins by making changes, but there's a risk that it backfires and you end up losing more than you win. Now you're blamed those changes that might not have even caused the losses, but they look at you and go, oh, look, you changed that player, and that starter, and that correlates to the team's winning percentage going down. Well, now you get blamed. And I think Paul Levesque was advised, and as we've seen, followed this, don't make changes that could correlate to a downturn in ratings or business that will get blamed on you, for that Vince McMahon could then use as leverage to get back. And if we look at what Levesque has done, what are we at, 6 months? Almost 6 months. I think so. Yeah. What he's done in nearly a half a year is 10% either way. There's no, Vince McMahon did not, if he was looking for an argument to make that WWE needs me because look at this disaster, look at these missteps. Paul Levesque, and I said this from the first days after the change, he is not going to make radical changes. That is not in his best interest. He's being advised not to. He's smart enough not to. The timeline I gave is the summer of 2023 is when he might start implementing more of his ideas that would be more noticeable. Now we see why, because he did not give Vince McMahon a card to play, which is I stepped away, I'm needed. Vince can't say that. Business is too good. On my Keller hotline for VIP members last night, I looked at the ratings pattern for Raw and SmackDown, and took the fall ratings and compared them year over year. And I mean, one shows up a little, the other shows down a little, but there's nothing you can point to and say, wow, if you're Vince McMahon, obviously, in order to maximize the sale price at WWE, I need to come in and steer things in a different direction creatively. That's not the case. That Vince can't point to that. So in a sense, I don't think there's any second guessing within WWE among the new regime that are probably upset with Vince McMahon doing this. Like enraged might be a better word. I don't think they can look at any missteps on their part and second guess themselves.
Yeah, especially with the board unanimously voting for him not to come back, right? As the initial
Yes.
vote went.
Yes.
So that'd be another key there, I would say that. So all right,
Yes.
well, any you've got, I assume you're doing the SmackDown post show tonight, so we'll leave any creative or anything like that. Real William Regal had the worst day possible, I would say, out of all this from a creative standpoint, right? So
Yeah, I mean, Tony Khan on Twitter saying a bunch of people who are being nice to me again. I mean, for us in our positions, it's fun that Tony Khan does that. I wouldn't if I were him. Tony's going to be Tony. I mean, it just, you're a public figure and you get to define what your public personality is, and it's not that big of a deal. But I would take more. I don't know if the high road is a word, because it's not like unclassy what he does, but there is a little bit of spiking of football to this developing story that might be seen as a little unbecoming in some circles. I think especially just in the TV deal realm, because if NBC Universal Comcast buys WWE or so, and they leave Fox, now Fox goes, hey, we like those numbers, we like those demographics. Let's put WWE on the air. Let's put AEW on the air and transition to a 2-hour live Rampage instead of SmackDown. We can inherit that audience, and hey, this is great. We have to pay a lot less, and we might get something comparable audience-wise. Part of what you're buying, as Vince McMahon is arguing right now, is the leader of the company. And Tony Khan's branding, part of it is the public face on social media. And so I don't know. I don't want to it's not that big of a deal, and it's kind of fun that he did that, but it is his way of sending a message to people going, if your approach to me changed in recent months because you thought you had more leverage, because the other company is run by Paul Levesque and not Vince McMahon, and you think Paul Levesque values you more than Vince did. Now Vince is back, and I'm noticing that you're acting different now. I mean, it is what it is. It's another twist in this, but it does affect AEW. I mean, now they're the good guys again in a lot of people's eyes, where when Paul Levesque took over, Paul had a lot of goodwill with fans, and people were more willing to be critical of Tony. So this, in that sense, is good for Tony, but it's premature to say that. I mean, again, Vince might just go to some meetings, negotiations, and not insert himself into creative, either by choice or by force. He might not be able to do that. So this could simply be a 1-week story in that sense. Oh, he's on the board and he's going to negotiate a sale or the new TV deal, but Levesque and Stephanie and Nick Khan just keep doing what they're doing, and it turns into from a fan side standpoint, not a particularly game-changing story. And that's what I mean. We're 24 hours into this. We don't know.
Well, yeah, even him stepping down was like a 3 major Wall Street Journal story journey, right? It wasn't the first one. It was the third one, the second one, and then the third one coming out, and he stepped down kind of shortly after that. And that was a Friday at 4, right after the markets closed, that he stepped down. So I think this is going to ebb and flow. If it's 2 weeks, you don't hear anything, and then it might be a week or two later, and there'll be some new news. And I think that's kind of going to be the pattern, if I had to guess, going forward here. But unless do you have any other closing thoughts, Wade?
Let's see. I'm looking at my notes from.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that, I want to make sure we've got a lot of new people on here. I think you're bringing in the traffic there, Wade. So I thank you for that. But if you are catching us for the first time, please make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and then also go VIP for PW Torch VIP, where you can hear Wade every day of your life for the rest of time on podcast form, whether that be Wade from 18 years ago, 5 years ago, or Wade from 30 minutes prior. You can get all of that information and the biggest backlog. I'm doing your job for you now, Wade, but the biggest backlog in the pro wrestling journalism space, I think, is
you don't tune me out when I do my plugs. You can
no. So So
how do people sign up? Do you have that memorized?
There's lots of ways. I mean, you're talking about, you go the Patreon way. You can go to pwtorch.com/govip.
There it is. Yes.
You can go on Apple Podcasts and connect it directly through your Venmo, I think. So look at that. Awesome. Yeah. So you said it's tattooed on my forearm here, so that's why I got it. So, if you have anything else before we go, you can do it.
No, that's good. I mean, I hit the notes.
Cool. Well, and then there'll
be
Tyler. No problem. There'll be a Smackdown tonight. I'm sure nothing will happen. And
I'll be. So I should mention seriously, like pwtorch.com will have a link in my Smackdown report at Keller's Smackdown report on our main website. There'll be a link there to the live show. We'll go live 5 minutes or 5-6 minutes after Smackdown ends tonight. You can live stream it, not video, just audio. But you can listen, call it by phone, or stream from a browser. And the link and the phone number will be there. So we'd love to hear from you guys. We talk mostly about the TV show. Obviously, on days like this, big news can can become part of the conversation too.
Mhm.
So around 10:05 Eastern, we'll be live tonight, and I might have more news in this regard, or at least more analysis.
Cool. Well, I think we'll call it there. And I think Zach and I will be jumping on a little later here on YouTube. So come back for that. We'll talk about all this stuff as well. But Wade, thank you again. And we
You're
will
welcome, Tyler. Good job.
see everybody later.
Thanks.